freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J Loren Norris.
Have you ever heard that phrase, when you ask for patience? A box doesn't show up at the door filled with patience that you just pop the box open and throw some patience on. It doesn't work like that. If you ask for patience, what happens is you get a whole lot of opportunities to be patient, which means if you're crazy enough to pray for patience, you're probably going to get a whole lot of stress, a whole lot of anxiety, a whole lot of opportunity to practice patience. Well, that's a leadership principle. And the only way to get it excellently is to practice it. Rehearsal. That's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and if maybe it's not patience, but it's opportunity, maybe it's money management, maybe it's sales, maybe it's a goal that you have that you've always thought, that's what I want to do. I've been listening to some stuff from Mind Valley. I don't agree with everything they say, but a lot of it makes really good sense, and they've done a really good job of gathering a massive audience of people who buy into what they're selling, and that's not a bad thing. Most of it's pretty solid stuff. The one that really fascinated me, though, was a story that Mind Valley's president told from the stage during their largest event. And he told a story that sounded pretty much exactly like mine. A little different. I think I've told this story before, but I want to bring it together in several pieces. See, this whole speaking career thing for me began when I was a toddler. I was in kindergarten when I was asked to do the doxology on stage because everybody else was terrified. By 7 or 8 years old, I was standing out beside the house lecturing my stuffed animals and singing songs to them. That never stopped. Middle school, high school, choir, speech competitions, etc., etc. But I never thought of it as a profession. I never thought I'd be in front of a camera or speaking to people all over, wherever is listening, all over the world, potentially. I never really thought of that as a career option. So when I joined the Air Force, I went into firefighting, not public relations or journalism. Just didn't think about it. But when I got out of the military, I thought maybe that would be my thing, is public relations, because I got to do a little bit of it while I was on active duty, while I was on injury. But the education counselor told me that probably wasn't a good fit for me based on the stuff that I'd written. And I told her, I just want to grow up and be the next James Dobson. I want to write books. I want to travel around the world. I want to save families. And she read some of the stuff that I wrote, and she said, I don't know who this James Dobson guy is, but the world is not ready for your ideas. You're going to have to grow old, and your hair will start falling out, or you're going to have to become a doctor or a pastor or something, because I would have thought if I just read that it came from somebody who was old and wise, who had counseled a whole lot of people and seen a whole lot of life, not from some 23-year-old soldier. And so I kind of took all of those ideas, those dreams and passions, and I chucked them. And I said, I'm not even going to pursue that. And I came out of the military and went into sales jobs. Tried to get back into the fire department as a civilian, but those jobs are hard to get. All the years that I spent in sales, I kept mastering the craft of being a better communicator. not intentionally, other than to be a better salesperson, with sales training and marketing training and psychology training and public speaking training. And that kind of started it with the Dale Carnegie program. I went as a marketing person for Verizon, and I got a great opportunity at a very limited price to be a part of the 3-day workshop. And it was life-changing. And I spent the next 5 years coaching the Dale Carnegie program. And all the while, I've got a little DJ business as a side hustle, and I've got a full-time job in the marketing department of a Fortune 50 company. And I'm just plugging along, but I'm still studying all these communicators. And then I started studying John Maxwell. And then I woke up one day to an utterance in my head that said, if you'll prepare the message, I'll prepare the platform. And I had no idea what that meant. But I also started getting a download. Just things coming in my head, ideas I had never pondered. Some of them were amalgamations of various books that I'd read, but some of them were really new to the extent that when I would share them with people, it was kind of an aha moment. But all the while, I'm still studying communication, and I'm DJing, and I'm serving people with audiovisual services. And I'll never forget this particular moment where the story was just like the guy at Mindvalley. His AV guy was in the wings and had been through many of these trainings. His guy that runs the cameras and runs the sounds and makes sure his mic works and does all that stuff. Yeah, I've done a lot of that, a whole lot of that. I've been on both sides of the camera for decades. But when his guy came up and they had said to the crowd, one of our speakers couldn't make it, he's fallen ill, we're not sure how we're going to fill this gap, AV guy raised his hand and went, I'll do it. And the boss looked at him and said, you work in the AV department. We appreciate your vigor, but I'm not sure this is the right spot for you. I mean, these are the A-list speakers from all over this is the biggest event, the most important event, the highest ticket sales price we've ever had. This is a big deal. You coming from behind the mixing board to the stage, that's crazy. But see, they have this standard in their company. A standard that they practice regularly, and that is they have a list of things that they challenge their team to do to set their goals way out there. And sometimes these are giant imaginary goals. In fact, I say imaginary, they're things that you wouldn't think would be on your goals list. One of those was his own 7-year-old son who said, I want to learn every language of the world. I want to build a flying car and I want to clean the air in Kuala Lumpur. Well, the flying car isn't quite invented, but he will be the first youngest pilot in history in his nation. He already knows 5 languages before he's got his pilot's license. He's reading French fluently as a middle school student. That's pretty impressive. When you look at those goals and ambitions and you go, those are way out there, that's not going to happen. Well, that's kind of how this guy felt about, I want to get on stage, I want to speak, I think I have something to say. In the same way, I was at an event. I was set up to do the AV. We had everything lined up, and the guy hosting the event was stressing out big time. He was in the back, he was stomping around, he was about ready to throw desks around. Apparently, the guy who was supposed to speak at 9 a.m. right after he spoke, just decided not to come and never bothered to tell him. So now his 9 o'clock speaker is kaput. And he doesn't have enough content of his own to put in there without, jeopardizing the whole event. And he said, do you know anybody who can speak? And I said, yes. What kind of topic are you looking for? He said, I need somebody who can speak on marketing, but not just your average marketing stuff. I said, well, I've got a couple of things that I can talk about. And he said, I'm not looking for somebody who just has a couple of things they can talk about. I need somebody who's got something that's good, that's solid. And I said, I can do it. He said, who's going to run sound? I said, well, my assistant's over there. He's been doing this for 8 or 9 years at the time. He said, well, you don't have to have slides and all that stuff, do you? And I pulled a USB drive out of my pocket and I said, yeah, I do. It's on my keyring. I have the slides, I have the handouts, I have everything. And he's like, you've got to be kidding me. So I went down to the office and I printed off the slides and I came back up and I made my presentation. And he came to me at lunch and he said, I will never do another event without you on the mic. Period. You're on my A list. All right. I don't say all that to brag about that opportunity, but I'm going to tell you the same thing that happened at Mind Valley. The AV guy walked to the stage, and at the end of the conference, he was voted the best speaker of the event. Do you think that was because he's been sitting behind the mixing panel all this time, imagining about the next Lamborghini, about the next vacation spot, imagining what it would be like to sit on an island with his feet up? No, absolutely not. Just like it wasn't for me. It wasn't the first time I'd picked up a microphone. It may have been the first time he saw. But see, the first time that I stood in front of an audience and spoke, even then, I had some rehearsal under my belt. Even then, I practiced and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And I failed. And I messed up. And I had people laugh at me. And I had people look at me like a dog listening to a funny sound, like, I'm not even sure what you mean by that. Or is that even a word? But see, every principle that we have in the world of leadership, patience and kindness and empathy and understanding, the ability to be bold without being brash, the ability to lead without being a tyrant, all of these principles and practices. There's 21 of them if you want to look it up. 21 irrefutable laws of leadership is a really good place to start. There's some really good instructions even in that book on how to practice these principles. But in the same way that you might practice parts of what you do alone, you might work on your voice and your intonation and your pitch and your pacing and your volume all by yourself. There are also things that you need to practice in coordination. I can tell you, as the AV guy, as the camera guy, it's amazing to me how often I run across other camera guys who don't have any idea what it is that their client, the speaker, is looking for. They just don't know because they've never been in that spot. There's also many, many speakers who will do things like walk out of the range of the spotlight or out of the lens of the camera. They walk completely out of frame. They don't understand blocking, like I learned in high school drama class, that where to turn, where your belly button should be pointed, where your nose should be pointed, where your toes should be pointed, because that relationship to the camera, that's what the world sees, especially when they're only seeing you through a camera. But on a stage in a live audience, that makes a big difference. You don't turn your back to the camera for extended periods of time. Nobody wants to look at that, especially while you're talking to them. How many times did your parents say, you look me in the eye when I'm talking to you? Yeah, there's a reason for that. It's how humans communicate. We read lips, we look at eyes, we follow facial expressions. And those are a critical aspect, not only of communicating from the stage, but of leading. If you're not rehearsing these things in conjunction, in collaboration, in coordination with the people on your team, you may all be practicing, but you're all practicing a different song. Can you imagine an orchestra where everyone comes together and says, we've been practicing for months, only to find out that the winds and the strings have been practicing a different song? Imagine a ballet where the people leading the ballet, the musicians and the dancers, are practicing a different song, singing a different tune, if you will. What a disaster that would be. But there are so many people in leadership who feel like, well, I've got the traits, I've got the qualities, I've got the ability. I'm just going to step up on the stage and knock it out of the park. I'm going to get this promotion because I have the tenacity to. And the real challenge often is we forget that it demands a lot of practice to be in the spotlight. It demands a lot of practice of patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and meekness and self-control. These are all really good things to practice when you're in leadership. They're also some of the hardest character traits in the world to master. And they only come through rehearsal. So every principle you've ever considered of leadership, every idea you've ever thought to implement, every opportunity you've sought, it sits on the other side of rehearsal, because your excellence will come from rehearsal. Rehearsal will bring you a lot of pain. Yep. Emotional pain, psychological pain, a lot of time, a lot of drama, a lot of heartache, a lot of failure. That's what rehearsal is for. But see, the guy at Mind Valley didn't take the stage the first time having never practiced. It's kind of like Walt Disney's grandson when they asked him, don't you wish Walt could be here to see this incredible, incredible park? Speaking of the amusement parks. And he said, if he hadn't already seen it 1,000,000 times in his head, we wouldn't be seeing it now. If the rehearsal is nothing more than the practice in your head, yeah, there's a lot of neuroscientists and psychological manipulators, for good and bad, who will tell you that what you do in your subconscious mind becomes what you do in your conscious mind. Meaning, sometimes you can rehearse absolutely silently. No one knows you're rehearsing. No one knows your efforts that are being concerted for the purpose of mimicry. You're watching somebody do something very, very well, watching how they handle a crisis, watch how they lead people through a tough time, how they bring around motivation when everybody else is a little bit depressed. While you're watching, learn to mimic. When you learn to mimic it, eventually you'll master it. And when you master it, that's when it begins to multiply. Heard that best from Brandon Dawson. The idea that we can be a part of every society and every community as a leader, it's not a fallacy, but it is a matter of rehearsal. How do you fit in? How do you change gears, change pace, match their cadences? How do you fit what's important to them? How do you build relationship on their priorities and not your own? How do you walk into a new environment as a leader? Read the 5 levels of leadership to learn this one from John Maxwell. If you're going to walk into a new place as a leader, it's really nice to be able to walk into a place where they already recognize you as a leader, because that's the mantle you showed up with. It's not just the name badge, it's not the title, it's not even the introduction of the person who says, hey, I want you to meet my friend, look at all they've accomplished. It's the atmosphere, it's the energy, it's the presence of who you are. It's the confidence that comes from the accomplishments and the confidence that comes from rehearsal, knowing that you're prepared. See, that the idea of being ready always, whether you're told to be ready or not, that's an important feature. There will be days that you'll think it's my turn. Turns out it's not. And there'll be days that you're thinking, well, it's not my turn. I'm not responsible today. I'm just watching today. And all of a sudden you're in the spotlight. On which of those terms should you have rehearsed? Being ready when it's not your turn, or being ready even when it's not your turn? Well, the answer is yes. Always. You should be ready always. If there's a crisis, even if it's not your space, if you're a leader, you should be ready to motivate, to encourage, to empower, to equip, to direct, to delegate. Those are the expectations of a good leader. And it shouldn't have to be that your name is on the door, your name is on a badge, or your name is on your name tag with the title underneath it. None of those things are relevant. If you have rehearsed good leadership principles, if you understand how to motivate people, how to lead people, how to guide them, how to redirect their efforts, how to delegate the right people to the right task, how to read people fast enough to know that's the person that should be doing this task, then apply those things when it's needed, when it's necessary. Not just because it's your assignment in the moment, but because you're capable, you're competent, and you're ready. And that comes from rehearsal. And again, that rehearsal doesn't mean you have to be in the role to rehearse it. You can be rehearsing silently in your mind. As you're watching an event unfold, you're watching someone take over a moment that's a disaster, and you think to yourself, well, they're doing that wrong. I'll give you a really good, sad, but good example. There's a video going around on social media right now of a guy in a white truck, just a white pickup truck. He stopped in traffic. All the cars are going around him and they're honking at him. They're blowing their horns, et cetera, et cetera. For whatever reason, his vehicle isn't moving, but the idle is really, really high. He's really revving the engine. And when people around him realize that he's having a seizure or a stroke or something of that nature, they start trying to get in the truck. Well, it has auto lock, so the minute it was put in gear, it all locked up and you can't get in the doors. And I watched no less than, in this video, only a few minutes, 7 different people try to use the rubber wheels of a baby stroller to crash the front passenger window of this truck to get in. This went on for minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, you watch the last person try to break that window with a rubber tire. Do you really think that's going to work? I mean, changing the person that's smacking is not making a difference. So they tried umbrellas and they tried all kinds of other things. And then finally somebody brings over a sledgehammer. And they're like, no, not the front window, the back window. Well, the person doing it doesn't think, I'm going to avoid the front passenger window and go to the back passenger window on the same side of the vehicle. They jump up in the bed of the truck and crack the back window, which, by the way, is the farthest from the door locks and the door handles, and also the smallest window to try to drag somebody out of if you have to. I'm just wondering, why was there nobody around with enough sense to know how to get into a vehicle in an emergency? Is this not common knowledge anymore? Does nobody know that the back end of your pocket knife can actually crack a window if you hit it in the right spot and only takes seconds? These are things that I'm just amazed are beyond the average common people. But see, a leader has already rehearsed those things in their head. They've already done the research. They've already done the homework. They understand what needs to be done. They understand what needs to be done to keep that car from lurching into gear and running over how many people by accident because this man's having a seizure. The engine's already a high enough idle. You got people standing in front of it trying to figure out how to get inside it. They're going to get dead if he's not brought down and out of his seizure. That's just crazy. But there was no leadership at this scene. There was pandemonium. There was chaos. Opportunities are going to pop up in your life if you have leadership skills, if you've been trained, if you have rehearsed, if you have practiced. Now for your team, it's not just a matter of stepping onto a scene where chaos has already ensued and bringing things under control of well-rehearsed, well-practiced, well-disciplined, well-studied leadership. With your team, it's a matter of coordination. With your team, you're a lot more like the orchestra, a lot more like the ballet, a lot more like a movie set. You're going to have to get everybody doing their part in harmony or in unison as they're intended to, so that it comes off as it's supposed to. There should be harmony between your sales team and your marketing team. There should be harmony between your production team and your sales team. There should be unison between your sales team and your finance team. They've got to be on the same page at every step. What numbers do we need? What numbers do we have? How much more do we need to sell to keep up with the production line? Those are the responsibility of the leader. And they'll only happen if you rehearse them. They don't happen on their own. For every principle you've ever learned in leadership, rehearse them alone first until you master them, and then take them to your team and challenge them to rehearse them as well. And the more you rehearse them, the better off you'll be. The more productive you'll be, the more successful you'll be. And remember, sometimes your greatest opportunity doesn't look like an opportunity at all. Les Brown became a DJ because somebody else was drunk at the wheel. He was nothing but a production assistant. But that started his career. Locked himself in that DJ booth and he stayed at it until it became his job, became his career, and he became a pro at it. It has been the backbone of the story of his millions of dollars earned from the stage most of his life. James, I believe his last name was Taylor, at Mind Valley, went from being the AV guy to one of the most prolific writers on the team. Why? Not because he was a good DJ guy that could step on the stage and handle a microphone, but because he rehearsed, he practiced, he applied. My speaking career is the birth of a lot of years of effort and discipline and service. And yours could be as well, but it's going to take rehearsal. Every principle you know about leadership, don't just wait for somebody to call on you. Prepare yourself so that you know you're the best you could possibly be when that time comes. Don't learn it on the stage. Learn it before you get there. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Loren is a master teacher. teacher on storytelling, and I learned so much. I'm really going to have to sit down and go back through everything, and I think I might have to have some more coffees with Loren, but it was totally worth my time, and I really highly recommend it if you're looking to grow your ministry, grow your business, grow your career. Loren will serve you well.